Why did Beta Blaziken look like that? A mix between the final Blaziken and Latias. This is a real official sprite too. What even happened? And how did it become the final Blaziken we know today? So regarding the history around Beta Blaziken's design, the image of it first surfaced publicly in 2012 at a Brazilian gaming exhibition called Game On. During the event, Game Freak presented a segment on Pokemon's design history, revealing a small selection of early Hoenn concept art. Technically, the designs weren't even supposed to get out there. Game On was a museum exhibition and not a standard expo, so almost no footage or images of this event officially exist. And for years, this was basically all anyone had to go on. A strange, official image that didn't match anything in the final game. Many speculated this was some kind of fusion, maybe an early version of Latias, or a completely original Pokemon separate from the Blaziken line. The design itself is very strange. Wings on a humanoid bird-like body. You can't quite tell what it was even going for. And there's also a mysterious blue-haired trainer riding it. That trainer detail is worth holding on to, by the way, because it's gonna come back up. Anyhow, the internet collectively gave this Pokemon the name Latiken. Despite the mystery surrounding this Pokemon, along the years and long before the Great Leak, a couple of fans had discovered a series of prototype Pokédex entries from Ruby and Sapphire, including one that may have once belonged to Latiken. It reads, "Sightseeing Pokemon, a Pokemon that loves to fly with a human riding it. It quietly flies and is completely comfortable to ride. When it tires, it rests its wings floating atop the sea. Has a calm personality, so it dislikes fighting. Its horn has magnet-like cells that act as a compass." Now, it was never explicitly confirmed which Pokemon this entry belonged to, but it seemed to describe Latiken directly, a flying creature that humans love to ride. However, there's a line about resting its wings floating atop the sea, which doesn't sound like a fire type. There's also the horn detail of it acting like a compass, tied to the whole concept of being a sightseeing Pokemon, which somewhat lines up with how Latios and Latias are later represented in the games. At the time, this was all the information we had, but it's clear that this entry was never written for Latiken, rather another creature, which I believe is tied to the story. Now that we've set the stage and backstory of Latiken, before we continue into this rabbit hole, let's take a moment to celebrate, because the big raid finally called. A massive RPG on both mobile and PC, with some of the deepest PvE content I've ever seen. And right now in Raid there's a lineup of 5 legendary champions straight out of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, including Alice the Wanderer, Cheshire Cat, Mad Hatter, Knave of Hearts, and the fearsome Queen of Hearts. Alice the Wanderer is a high damage attack legendary that excels at controlling enemies and disrupting their abilities, messing with enemy cooldowns while amplifying her own damage. Along her journey, Alice is guided by the Cheshire Cat, who is also a powerful damage dealer and a devastating force in both PvP and PvE. What I love about Raid is the depth. The champion building alone has kept me busy for hours, and the PvE content is seriously the best I've seen in a mobile RPG, and the fact it runs this well on PC too is very impressive. Download via my link in the description or scan my QR code and you'll instantly unlock Legendary Champion Harvest Jack. Then hit level 15 to pick up Epic Champion Uugo, one of the most valuable in the game. New players also get to pick one promo code for a free Legendary Champion, BIGDAWG for Turvold, Get Alice for Alice the Wanderer, KITTYCUT for Cheshire Cat, GOFAST for Razelvarg, and Raph for Grand Oak Padrig. I'd personally go with Alice the Wanderer, but remember to use my link first or none of this unlocks. Come find me in game 2. The name's It's Turtlebro and I'm in Clan Turtlebro. Links below. Now back to the story. Something that completely reframes this conversation is the fact that doesn't get nearly enough attention, that Blaziken was designed first, before Torchic and Combusken. In fact, it was designed before any other Hoenn Pokemon. Sugimori himself said so. During an interview in 2003, he explained that he understood the variety and potential of Pokemon designs, and that he specifically wanted to push the envelope of what would be accepted. So the first Pokemon he made was Blaziken. He wondered if people would accept a humanoid Pokemon, and that he was intentionally testing the waters. So knowing what a conventionally designed Pokemon was, with the concept of Blaziken, he wanted to push the boundaries and weaken the idea of what couldn't be a Pokemon. That philosophy still holds true across both versions of Blaziken. Despite the design changing drastically, both interpretations committed to the same mission, to create a humanoid figure and push the boundaries of conventional Pokemon design. If anything, the final version committed to that mission more than the beta design, meaning the decision to make Blaziken look even more human was completely deliberate and intentional. What this also means is that the line was built backwards. Blaziken came first and set the design mission. Then Game Freak had to build the line out backwards, and the pre-evolutions were designed to lead you to this strange humanoid design. A completely inverted process to how you'd normally expect a starter's evolution line to be designed. Blaziken started as a standalone design experiment, and over time the iterations and the rest of the evolutionary line was built around it to serve an original vision. In other words, the final Blaziken is one of the most thoughtful and intentional designs in the entire franchise. But that's more of a conceptual reason. When the Great Leak happened in 2024, it brought us even more information. Buried among the hundreds of sprites and assets from Ruby and Sapphire's development was a prototype sprite for a creature codenamed Alhawk, and very clearly, it is the Latiken concept. The file data places this sprite at two different dates, November 2001 and March 2002. But the Great Leak didn't just give us a sprite, it also surfaced a Pokédex entry from February 2002, and that was the proper Pokédex entry for Alhawk. By flapping its wings, it generates high temperature heat waves that turn plant matter into char, and it can barely see in dark areas. That is the description of a fire type with wings, and a description directly tied to the Alhawk codename. What's very interesting as well, the entry that this Pokédex dataset comes from also featured the sightseeing entry, confirming that it was a completely separate flying Pokemon. In fact, we learned that the sightseeing Pokemon was actually called Perun, and later renamed Plapas. It also went through extensive redesign throughout development, and was seemingly cut in the final game. So give or take, Latiken existed within the game, within a year of Ruby and Sapphire's release, alongside this mysterious sightseeing Pokemon. And I don't think you understand, up until around Generation 5, Game Freak would often completely redesign Pokemon within months of a game's release. They would change so much about the game in a very short amount of time, just because they could. So yes, this Latiken sprite existed long enough in development to leave this trace, and still ended up as two entirely separate Pokemon. One of those Pokemon leaned further into the humanoid design mission, while the other took the flying creature concept and became Latias. Bringing back the sightseeing Pokemon, I'm almost certain that this was a prototype for a flying mythical, and eventually became Latios. Maybe they hadn't finalized on the design, or had a specific reason like it was too similar to Lapras. And once the decision was made to split Alhawk, the aerial side of the design was merged into the Plapas concept, and the twin pairing of Latios and Latias was born. What's strange though is that this theory is both supported and contested by a postcard from March 2002, featuring the finalized designs of Latios and Latias. Notice anything familiar? The blue-haired trainer. The same one who appeared riding Latiken in the original concept art. She's present on both sides of the split. So now we have a clear idea of the timeline. Alhawk's sprite first appears in November 2001, then by February 2002, it has a confirmed Pokédex entry, and that separate sightseeing entry is in the same Pokédex, which is a Pokemon that has already gone through extensive redesign. Then by March 2002, Latios and Latias have finalized designs, meaning the split happened somewhere in that narrow window, sometime between February and late March 2002. But I'm also left wondering who this blue-haired trainer actually is. She kind of reminds me of Chris, however the hair design is completely different. Given that Sugimori designed Blaziken first, it's not unreasonable to think that the earliest Hoenn trainer art came with it. But isn't it just mind-blowing that Latiken was seemingly fire-flying, while Blaziken ended up as one of the most iconic firefighting Pokemon in the franchise? Everything about Blaziken revolves around its fighting ability, like using the high jump kick, and when you look at it from a historical standpoint, the type swap alone was a significant internal decision. Blaziken's fire/fighting combination essentially became the origin for a very hotly debated starter type pattern spanning multiple generations. No wonder they decided to reveal Latiken, because it is one of the most special parts in Game Freak's internal history. The time when Sugimori designed Blaziken first, with a deliberate specific mission, and a call was made to split the Pokemon, pushing deeper into the concept while creating another very iconic set of aerial mythicals, both internally tied to a mysterious blue-haired trainer, and all of us playing across just a few months in 2002, during one of the many chaotic times in the franchise's history. And that, my friends, is the story of why Beta Blaziken looks like that. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, subscribe, and check out one of my other videos on screen right now. Don't forget, my Raid Shadow Legends link is in the description, or scan my QR code for free legendary and epic champions for new players only. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon.